Hello, Lorcana YouTube community, and all my fellow Sapphire and Steel enjoyers. I want to shout out everyone who's been supporting the channel recently, and everyone who's joined my Discord and has followed me on Patreon. We are building this community, and it's growing every day, so thank you for everyone who's joined. If you haven't joined already, I'm going to go ahead and drop those links down below in the description, so you can go ahead and join the select few community. This is my blue steel toolbox deck that I have created, and over the past couple days testing set 9, I think right now where the meta is at, and where I expect the meta to be once the set has officially come out, is we're going to be in a evasive and challenge meta. So in my testing sessions, I've noticed, for example, against the Dumbos, Genies, like all of these evasive characters are super annoying to deal with. And then when you go against Amber Steel, or even in those same matchups, you're doing a lot of challenging and a lot of trades. The strategy with this deck is very simple. It's actually pretty much stayed the same how Sapphire Steel has always been played. You want to play characters early on so you won't fall behind in lore, and you want to make sure you can answer your opponent's characters early on, and then you want to be able to ramp on turn 2 or turn 3. That way you can get your big characters out as fast as possible by turn 4. But this deck and the way that the meta is right now, Sapphire Steel is very inclined to play these 7-drop characters that are also removal tools like Hades and Vince. So we also have Donald that you can play on your turn 4 and ramp to your 7-drop character that you can play on turn 5. So you can play a Hades or a Vince on turn 5, and you don't fall behind on board control because you can play a character like Captain Hook or a card that can answer evasive threats on turn 1 or turn 2. You're pretty much establishing a way to answer any board in this meta. So all that's left is to make sure that we have a consistent line of play and draw cards. So our draw cards are going to be Doc, Beyond the Horizon, and Namaari, and some other cards that can help us find our key pieces. And then everything else is just tech choices to answer the meta that, again, I think is going to be pure of evasives and anything low to the ground having to challenge the board. As always, I'll be going into detail with every single card. I'll have timestamps down below so you can always go back and listen to these key thoughts on each of these cards. If you guys haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and hit that sub button, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of my deck list, and also your thoughts on Set 9 Lorcana Fabled. To start off the deck list, we have 4 copies of Captain Hook and 4 copies of Mulan. Captain Hook is just going to be there to contest any 1-drop character, and it can counter anything that has 3 willpower, so that's perfect. If you combo Captain Hook with any other character, you'll be able to take out anything with 4 willpower, for example, like a Daisy. So Captain Hook is just going to be the best 1-drop character to play to contest anything on the board outside of evasive characters. Every deck right now is playing 1-drop characters, so you need to make sure you have something on turn 1, because if not, you're going to fall behind on board control. Followed by Captain Hook, we have 4 copies of Mulan. Mulan is just going to be a super nice filter card. It kind of plays like a popsicle and a develop your brain. You get to discard any multiple uninkables you have in your hand, and then she does swing for 2. The only other 1-drop character that I consider playing is Happy, just to counter other evasive characters. So for our 2-drop characters, we're playing 2 copies of Cruella. Cruella and the 4 copies of Mr. Smee are strictly there just to answer evasive cards. They both have the same stat line of 3-2 and questing for 1, and they only get evasive on your turn. There are just so many annoying evasive characters in the meta, so if you just slam one of these down on turn 2 and stop your opponent from questing 1 or 2 turns, that should be the pause that you needed to catch back up on your opponent. To finish off our 2-drop slot, we're playing 4 copies of Doc. I think Doc is just crazy right now. You might be thinking, wow, you're playing Doc and Beyond the Horizon, and you're playing 7-drop Hades. Yes, because we have cards like Namaari and Mulan that can filter these dead uninkables or certain cards that might feel awkward when we're trying to combat with other cards. But Doc is just crazy because you can empty out your hand on curve, play Doc, and draw another 2 cards. And since we're playing a card like Donald, where you can play Donald and get to 7 ink, you can like top deck a Doc and then play another 5-drop character. And there's times against your Amethyst Sapphire matchup where your opponent is activating Hades, it can get to the point where you're at 9 ink and you can go Doc into a Hades, for example. And losing cards that draw, for example, Sad Beast, Tala from these previous sets, we just need more draw cards. For our 3-drop characters, as I mentioned previously, we do have the option to ramp on turn 3 with Pleakley. So I think Pleakley right now is in an amazing spot because Sapphire and Steel is forced to play these weak 1-drop characters or these weak 2-drop characters. And if we can convert that into ink to go ahead and play our 5-drop characters on turn 4, that's huge. And since we're challenging a lot in this meta, Pleakley having that 3-4 stat line is just super solid to challenge other characters. But the main thing is just being able to turn these weak characters into ink to get out our stronger characters. So Pleakley, super key. I think Pleakley is an amazing spot again in this meta. Pleakley also is an alien, which is very important because he combos really well with our last 3-drop, and the only set 9 card that we're playing is going to be this brand new Lilo. So we're playing 3 copies of Lilo. What does she do? She gives your whole board on play +2 challenger. The biggest weakness Sapphire and Steel had was being able to answer 4 willpower characters, and now that issue is gone. It's solved with this Lilo. So all these weak characters that can attack for 3 now can attack for 5. So she's just super important on the draw. Like, the chances of you winning on the draw had just increased tremendously, and your opponent just has to be careful now and have to sometimes play around Lilo because they know one with Lilo and like them getting their whole board destroyed on a play like that, you're just not going to come back from that. So Lilo is just MVP of this deck. I do think 4 copies is too much. 3 right now has been perfect, but this card is just super solid, and it's probably going to be the best card for Sapphire Steel in the set 9 meta. Onto the 5-drops. This is going to be one of my favorite cards that we get to play now, and it's actually Baymax. So Baymax is super important because when Baymax is on play and when he quests, you can remove up to 2 damage from one of your characters and gain up to 2 lore or 1 lore for each damage removed. How I've been mentioning, we're in a challenging meta. There's just so many times where your opponent is trading into your characters or you're trading to your opponent's characters, or there's just damage left on your characters. So Baymax being able to heal up your guys and they can go ahead and quest and challenge again for another turn, it's just a huge tempo gain. There's also Bell and Gogo still in the meta. So Bell being able to transfer damage on the board to one of your other characters, or Gogo being able to gain lore based off how much damage your character has. You can lose games like that. So Baymax being able to stop your opponent's plays like that could just be the thing that messes up their lines of play. And if Baymax gets to survive a turn and he gets to quest, that's another 2 lore you can gain. So your other characters can challenge, and then when Baymax quests, you heal those characters. You don't fall behind in the lore. We're playing 4 copies of Donald Duck. So this card is just super awesome. This card has been used back in the day early on in Sapphire Steel. When you play this character, you get to ink the top card of your deck, comes out exerted. So the main purpose of Donald is we get to play him on our turn 4, if we got to ramp on turn 2 or turn 3, and then Donald can get our 7-drop character out on turn 5. So what 7-drop characters do we have? We have Hades and Vince, 2 huge power cards that are just super crucial removal tools. And then Donald's stat line on his own is a 3-4 that can quest for 2. And then remember, we do have Lilo, so Donald can hit for 5, and then him having 4 willpower is super nice because he can survive some challenges, and that combos really well with Baymax. We have Namaari, which is probably the other best card in the deck. Namaari is just probably one of the best draw tools that we have in this deck. You get to filter out your hand, ditch dead uninkables. If you already have a good hand and you don't need dog, well, you can go ahead and remove that dog. And then you get a +1 attack for each card in your discard. So Namaari just going to be the super best offense and defensive tool that you have. Super important. She's going to be crucial probably in every Sapphire and Steel list, so I recommend getting your 4 copies. Onto our 6-drop characters, we're playing a set 1 card that got reprinted, and that's going to be Robin Hood. Again, being able to shut down evasives is huge, and Robin Hood already being able to take out a genie on his own with no boost, it's just a nice cherry on top with that. Plus him drawing a card, so overall, even if you're not going against evasives, drawing that card can be huge if you're top decking. For example, 4 copies of Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell, just super awesome card. Like always, it just shuts down aggro strategies against Amber Steel. For example, you can get a Tinkerbell out on your turn 5 and you can like freeze the board, stun it, and just she's also a pseudo removal tool. If Tinkerbell challenges something, you can do 2 damage to something else. Her 1 ping effect when she's on play is super relevant, so that also combos really well with your evasive characters that swing for 3, just in case you don't have a Lilo. Onto our 7-drops, and pretty much our only removal tools is going to be 4 copies of Hades that also got reprinted. So 3 super strong set 1 cards that Sapphire and Steel has that are just super relevant in the meta. Hades is going to be, I think, the only card in the meta that's other than that 1 red action card that you can just point and click click and remove something on the board. So that reason alone is why 4 copies of Hades is just mandatory. This card is insane, being able to play it on turn 5, and it's going to be super huge in the matchup against Amethyst Sapphire to remove opposing opponents' Hades or Elsa's, just big characters like that. Followed by Hades, we're playing 2 copies of Vince. I love this card so much because he quests for 3, and on play you get to deal 3 damage to something. So there's so many times where your opponent is challenging to your characters and their characters survive, or you play Tinkerbell, you leave 1 damage on something, and then Vince comes out and can just blow up something on the board. And again, him questing for 3 is huge, and the stat line 2-8 makes it super hard for your opponent to remove. They usually need to trade 2 to 3 bodies into him, so if you have him out, he's usually going to kill something and then gain that 3 lore. So super awesome card, a very nice pseudo removal tool. Onto our actions, we're playing 4 copies of Cell, so we're either going to ramp on turn 2 or turn 3. And I think Cell is just super awesome because we're lowering our unink count, and we get to activate Cell and ink and still use that ink, so we can play a card like Hook or Mulan. So the strategy of being able to activate Cell is to not fall behind on board. Now, let's say you had to play, you're on the draw and you had to play, for example, a Smee to counter an evasive character. So you can play Captain Hook, play a Smee on turn 2, and then turn 3, if you don't have Pleakley, that's fine because you can play a Cell and another 2-drop character or another 1-drop character. So that's why we have about 14 characters that we can play on turn 1 and turn 2, and we just never fall behind on board presence. So Cell and Pleakley are just going to be our best ram tools. I'm playing 2 copies of Vision of the Future. In my testing, when I was losing, I noticed it's because I couldn't find my removal tool, or I couldn't find a dog beyond the horizon, just the extra key pieces that I needed to close out the game, and Vision of the Future just solved that problem instantly. Being able to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and find what you need and a key moment can win you the game. For our only removal action cards are going to be 4 copies of Strength of the Raging Fire. Since this deck curves out really well, we can just activate this card and get rid of 3 to 5 willpower characters. For the last card in the deck, the returning Beyond the Horizon that we got in set 8. So Beyond the Horizon not only is just a powerful draw card for us, but since Sapphire, Amethyst, or all these other Amethyst decks that can play Genie, Finder Keepers that just get to draw a lot of cards, we get to punish them with the Beyond the Horizon. The cool thing about this card now is since we're playing 7-drop characters, we can actually sing it with one of them instead of having to waste 2 characters. And that's huge, right? Being able to quest with those 2 characters, and then, for example, Hades or Vince singing it, drawing another 3 cards, deploying more characters. If you get this card off, you're probably going to win the game. Just a very nice, awesome draw card. You can mess around with the ratio with 3 dogs, 3 Beyond the Horizon, depending on your local meta, but I think this ratio is just fine. I want to go over some cards that you can consider adding into the deck. So you can consider adding Happy, just to answer evasive characters early on turn 1. Pete is another card that people are dropping, but I think if Power Line is very annoying, or you have more removal cards, more action cards that are just annoying that come out as the meta is growing, then Pete is going to be a nice card to add back in the deck. I think Fire the Cannons is another card that you can play in here to answer opposing Iagos, characters that have the keyword Vanish, and just annoying 1-drop characters like Merfolks, for example. If you wanted to add in some 4-drop characters, since we're playing Cell, I recommend either adding Kita, Dr. Calico, or Stitch. Those are 3 super solid choices that you can go with. That's it for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to drop a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of the deck list. If you try it out, at me on my social medias, and let me know how your experience went trying out this deck. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Join the Discord. Follow me on Patreon. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.